Welcome to Bible Quizzes. Ready to explore the scriptures and test your knowledge? Let's begin. 1. Who led the Israelites out of Egypt? Joshua, Moses, Aaron, David. Moses. Exodus 3:10. So now, go. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people the Israelites out of Egypt. 2. What was the first plague that God sent on Egypt? Frogs, locusts, water turning to blood, darkness. Water turned into blood. Exodus 7:20. And Moses and Aaron did so, as the Lord commanded. And he left out the rod, and smote the waters that were in the river, in the sight of Pharaoh, and in the sight of his servants. And all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. 3. Who was the first king of Israel? Saul, David, Solomon, Rehoboam. 1 Samuel 9:17. And when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said unto him, Behold, the man whom I spake to thee of, this same shall reign over my people. 4. How many days did it take God to create the heavens and the earth? 6 days, 7 days, 5 days, 8 days. 6. Genesis 2:2. By the seventh day God had finished the work he had been doing. 5. Who was the mother of Samuel? Hannah, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel. 1 Samuel 1:20. Wherefore it came to pass, when the time was come about after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked him of the Lord. 6. What was the name of the giant that David killed? Goliath, Saul, Absalom, Ishbi-benob. 1 Samuel 17:49-50. Then David put his hand in his back and took out a stone, and he slanted it and struck the Philistine in his forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. 7. What city's wall fell down after the Israelites marched around it for 7 days? Jericho, Jerusalem, Ai, Hebron. 2. Jericho. Joshua 6:20. So the people shouted when the priests blew with the trumpets, and it came to pass, when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. 8. Who was thrown into a den of lions for praying to God? Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Jeremiah. 2. Daniel 6:16. Then the king commanded, and Daniel was brought and cast into the den of lions. The king declared to Daniel, May your God whom you serve continually deliver you. 9. What was the name of Moses' sister? Miriam, Deborah, Rebecca, Zipporah. Miriam. Exodus 15:20. And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a thimble in her hand, and all the women went out after her with thimbles and with dances. 10. Who built the ark to save his family and animals from the flood? Noah, Moses, Abraham, Adam. 9. Noah. Genesis 6:14. Make yourself an ark and gopher wood, make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside out with pitch. 11. How long did the Israelites wander in the desert? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. 40 years. Joshua 5:6. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, till all the people that were men of war, which came up of Egypt, were consumed, because they obeyed not the voice of the Lord, unto whom the Lord sware that he would not show them the land which the Lord sware unto their fathers that he will give us, a land that floweth with milk and honey. 12. What was the name of the mountain where Moses received the 10 Commandments? Mount Zion, Mount Sinai, Mount Carmel, Mount Ararat. 13. Mount Sinai. Exodus 19:20. The Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. 13. Who led the Israelites into the promised land? Moses, Aaron, Joshua, Caleb. Joshua 1:1-2. Now it came about after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, that the Lord spoke to Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' servant, saying, Moses my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, cross the Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, to the son of Israel. 14. Who was swallowed by a great fish after trying to flee from God's command? Jonah, Daniel, Ezekiel, Moses. Jonah 1:17. Now the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. 15. How many times did Naaman dip in the Jordan River to be healed of leprosy? 3, 5, 7, 9. 7. 2 Kings 5:14. Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. 16. What did God use to speak to Moses in the wilderness? A burning bush, a cloud, a stone, a fire. 'A burning bush. Exodus 3:2. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. 17. What was the first commandment God gave in the 10 Commandments? You shall not steal. You shall not commit adultery. You shall have no other gods before me. Honor your father and your mother. You shall have no other gods before me. Exodus 23. You shall have no other gods before me. 18. Who was the strongest man in the Bible? Samson. Judges 14:6. Then the Spirit of the Lord arose upon him, and also he had nothing in his hand. He tore the lion in pieces as one tears a young goat, but he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. 19. Who was the wife of King Ahab, known for her wickedness? Ruth, Esther, Jezebel, Deborah. Jezebel. 1 Kings 21:25. There was never anyone like Ahab who sold himself to do evil in the eyes of the Lord, urged on by Jezebel his wife. 20. Who was the last judge of Israel? Gideon, Samuel, Eli, Deborah. Samuel. 1 Samuel 7:15. And Samuel continued as Israel's leader all the days of his life. 21. What was the name of the Philistine woman who betrayed Samson? Delilah, Abigail, Tamar, Miriam. Delilah. Judges 16:4. Sometime later, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. 22. How many sons did Jesse, David's father, have? 6, 7, 8, 9. Eight. 1 Samuel 16:10-11. Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, but Samuel said to him, "The Lord has not chosen this." So he asked Jesse, "Are these all the sons you have?" "There is still the youngest," Jesse answered. 23. What was the name of the priest who raised Samuel? Aaron, Eli, Melchizedek, Joshua. Eli. 1 Samuel 2:11. Then Elkanah went home to Ramah, and the boy was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli the priest. 24. Who was thrown into a fiery furnace but emerged unharmed? Moses, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Daniel 3:23-25. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. The king Nebuchadnezzar leapt to his feet in amazement and asked his advisers, "Where are there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, your majesty." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." 25. What was the name of David's father? Saul, Boaz, Jesse, Joseph. Jesse. 1 Samuel 17:12. Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. 26. Who was the queen who saved her people from destruction? Esther, Bathsheba, Vashti, Miriam. Esther. Esther 4:14. And who knows, but you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? 27. Who was the father of Solomon? Saul, David, Absalom, Joab. David. 1 Kings 2:10-12. So David slept with his father and was buried in the city of David. And the days that David reigned over Israel were 40 years. 7 years reigned he in Hebron, and 33 years reigned he in Jerusalem. Then sat Solomon upon the throne of David his father, and his kingdom was established greatly. 28. What did Elijah leave behind for Elisha when he was taken up to heaven? His staff, his sandals, his mantle, his sword. His mantle. 2 Kings 2:13. He took up also the mantle of Elijah that fell from him, and went back and stood by the bank of Jordan. 29. How many days did Jonah spend in the belly of the great fish? Three days. Jonah 1:17. Now the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. 30. Who was the prophet that confronted King Ahab about his evil deeds? Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Amos. Elijah. 1 Kings 18:17. When Ahab saw Elijah, he said to him, Is that you, traveler of Israel? 31. What was the name of Isaac's father? Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, Moses. Abraham. Genesis 22:2. He said, Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. 32. What prophet was called from a burning bush? Moses, Elijah, Isaiah, Ezekiel. Moses. Exodus 3:2. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. 33. What was the name of the place where Abraham almost sacrificed Isaac? Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, Mount Moriah, Mount Nebo. Mount Moriah. Genesis 22:2. He said, Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. 34. Who was known for his wisdom and built the first temple in Jerusalem? Solomon, David, Joshua, Saul. Solomon. 1 Kings 6:1. And it came to pass in the 480 years after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4 years of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month Ziv, which is the second month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. 35. How long did it rain during the flood in Noah's time? 30 days and 30 nights, 40 days and 40 nights, 50 days and 50 nights, 60 days and 60 nights. "40 days and 40 nights." Genesis 7:12. And rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. 36. Who interpreted King Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the statue made of different materials? Joseph, Daniel, Ezekiel, Isaiah. Daniel. Daniel 2:31. You saw, O king, and behold, a great image. This image, mighty and of exceeding brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. 37. Who was the last of the major prophets to serve during the Babylonian exile? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Daniel, Ezekiel. Ezekiel. Ezekiel 1:3. The word of the Lord came expressly unto Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of Chaldeans by the river Chebar, and the hand of the Lord was there upon him. 38. Who was the first man created by God? Abel, Cain, Adam, Seth. Adam. Genesis 2:7. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. 39. What was the name of the Philistine woman who betrayed Samson for silver? Delilah, Abigail, Ruth, Miriam. Delilah. Judges 16:5. And the Lord of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, Seduce him, and see where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may behind him to humble him, and we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. 40. Who did King Saul consult when he was desperate to communicate with Samuel's spirit? A prophet, a witch, a priest, a soldier. A witch. 1 Samuel 28:7. Saul then said to his attendants, Find me a woman who is a medium, so I may go and inquire of her. 41. Who was the man who lived longer than anyone else recorded in the Bible? Adam, Noah, Methuselah, Enoch. Methuselah. Genesis 5:27. Altogether, Methuselah lived a total of 969 years, and then he died. 42. Who was the queen who lost her royal position because she refused to appear before the king? Esther, Jezebel, Vashti, Bathsheba. Vashti. Esther 1:12. But when the attendants delivered the king's command, Queen Vashti refused to come. Then the king became furious and burned with anger. 43. Who was the first priest of Israel? Moses, Aaron, Joshua, Eli. Aaron. Exodus 28:1. Have Aaron your brother brought to you from among the Israelites, along with his sons Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Itamar, so they may serve me as priests. 44. Who was known for his extraordinary strength and defeated many Philistines? Samson, David, Gideon, Joshua. Samson. Judges 15:15. He killed 1,000 men with a donkey Jabin. 45. Who was David's best friend, the son of King Saul? Jonathan, Nathan, Absalom, Solomon. Jonathan. 1 Samuel 18:1. Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. 46. Who succeeded Moses, a leader of Israel? Aaron, Joshua, Caleb, David. Joshua. Joshua 1:1-2. Now it came about after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, that the Lord spoke to Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' servant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, cross the Jordan, you and all these people, to the land which I gave in to them, to the son of Israel. 47. Who was the first woman created for the rib of Adam? Eve, Sarah, Ruth, Rebecca. Eve. Genesis 2:22. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man. 48. Who was the wife of Abraham? Hagar, Sarah, Rachel, Miriam. Sarah. Genesis 17:15. God also said to Abraham, As for Sarai your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai, her name will be Sarah. 49. Who was the mother of Samuel the prophet? Rachel, Hannah, Ruth, Sarah. Hannah. 1 Samuel 1:20. So in the course of time Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, Because I asked the Lord for him. 50. Who succeeded David as a king of Israel? Solomon, Absalom, Saul, Rehoboam. Solomon. 1 Kings 2:12. So Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his rule was firmly established. 51. Who was the prophet taken to heaven in a whirlwind? Elijah, Elisha, Isaiah, Jeremiah. Elijah. 2 Kings 2:11. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them. And Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. 52. Who anointed David as the king of Israel? Samuel, Saul, Nathan, Eli. Samuel. 1 Samuel 16:13. So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers, and from that day on the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. 53. What was the name of the city that Joshua and the Israelites marched around for 7 days before its walls fell? Ai, Jericho, Jerusalem, Bethel. Jericho. Joshua 6:20. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. 54. Who interpreted the dream for Pharaoh leading to his rise in power in Egypt? Joseph. Genesis 41:39-40. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards the throne will I be greater than you. 55. Who was the prophet who confronted King David after his sin with Bathsheba? Samuel, Nathan, Isaiah, Elijah. Nathan. 2 Samuel 12:7. Nathan said to David, You are the man. Thus said the Lord, the God of Israel, I anoint you king over Israel, and I deliver you out of the hand of Saul. 56. Who led the Israelites out of Egypt? Joshua, Moses, Aaron, Caleb. Moses. Exodus 3:10. So now go, I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people the Israelites out of Egypt. 57. What did God provide from heaven to feed the Israelites in the wilderness? Bread, quail, manna, water. Manna. Exodus 16:4. Then the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. 58. Who was known as a mighty warrior who led Israel after Moses? Joshua, Gideon, Samuel, Saul. Joshua. Joshua 1:1-2. Now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all these people, unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. 59. Who was the father of King David? Saul, Jesse, Samuel, Nathan. Jesse. 1 Samuel 16:10. Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, but Samuel said to him, The Lord has not chosen this. 60. Who led the Israelites into battle against the Midianites with only 300 men? Samson, Gideon, Jephthah, Saul. Gideon. Judges 7:7. The Lord said to Gideon, With the 300 men that left I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. 61. What did God place at the entrance of the Garden of Eden to gather? An angel, a flaming sword, a tree, a rock. flaming sword. Genesis 3:24. After sending them out, the Lord God stationed mighty cherubim to the east of the Garden of Eden, and he placed a flaming sword that flashed back and forth to the guard the way to the tree of life. 62. Who was Ruth's mother-in-law? Hannah, Esther, Naomi, Sarah. Naomi. Ruth 1:16. But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." 63. Who was the prophet that challenged the prophet of Baal on Mount Carmel? Elisha, Elijah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. Elijah. 1 Kings 18:21. Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." 64. Who became queen of Persia and saved her people from destruction? Ruth, Deborah, Esther, Jezebel. Esther. Esther 4:14. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the youth from another place, but you and your father's house will perish, and who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. 65. Who was the youngest son of Jacob? Reuben, Joseph, Benjamin, Simeon. Benjamin. Genesis 42:4. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brother, for he feared that harm might happen to him. 66. What was the name of the Babylonian official who changed Daniel's name to Belteshazzar? Nebuchadnezzar, Darius, Ashpenaz, Cyrus. Ashpenaz. Daniel 1:7. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel the name Belteshazzar, to Ananiah Shadrach, to Mishael Meshach, and to Azariah Abednego. 67. Who was the judge who vowed to sacrifice wherever came out of his house if he won a battle, which tragically turned out to be his daughter? Gideon, Jephthah, Samson, Barak. Jephthah. Judges 11:30-31. Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, "If you will indeed give the son of Ammon into my hand, then it shall be that wherever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the son of Ammon, it shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering." 68. Who was the king of Babylon who saw the handwriting on the wall? Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Darius, Cyrus. Belshazzar. Daniel 5:5. Suddenly the finger of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall, near the lampstand in the royal palace. The king watched the hand as it wrote. 69. Who was David's rebellious son who tried to take the throne from him? Solomon, Absalom, Amnon, Adonijah. Absalom. 2 Samuel 15:10. Absalom conspired against his father David and declared himself king in Hebron. 70. Which prophet foretold the destruction of Nineveh? Jonah, Nahum, Amos, Habakkuk. Nahum. Nahum 1:14. The Lord has given a command concerning you, Nineveh. You will have no descendants to bear your name. I will destroy your image and idols of your gods. I will prepare your grave, for you are vile. 71. Who was the Moabite woman who became the great-grandmother of King David? Esther, Ruth, Abigail, Sarah. Ruth. Ruth 4:16-17. Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The woman living there said, Naomi has a son, and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. 72. Which prophet had a vision of dry bones coming to life? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. Ezekiel. Ezekiel 37:1. The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord, and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. 73. Who led the Israelites across the Jordan River into the Promised Land? Moses, Joshua, Aaron, Caleb. Joshua. Joshua 3:9. Joshua said to the Israelites, Come here and listen to the word of the Lord your God. 74. Who was the first judge of Israel? Samson, Othniel, Deborah, Ehud. Othniel. Judges 3:10. The Spirit of the Lord came on him, so that he became Israel's judge and went to war. 75. Who was thrown into a fiery furnace but was not harmed? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Daniel, Jonah, Ezekiel. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Daniel 3:23. And these three men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. 76. Who led successful revolt against the Seleucid Empire and restored the temple in Jerusalem? Nehemiah, Ezra, Judas Maccabeus, Joshua. Judas Maccabeus. First Maccabees 4:48-49. They cleansed the sanctuary and made a new sacred vessel, and they brought the lampstand and the altar of incense and the table into the temple. 77. Who was the Persian king that allowed the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple? Cyrus, Darius, Xerxes, Artaxerxes. Cyrus. Ezra 1:2. This is what Cyrus, king of Persia, said. The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdom of the earth, and he has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah. 78. Who was the priest and scribe who led a group of exiles back to Jerusalem from Babylon? Nehemiah, Ezra, Zerubbabel, Haggai. Ezra. Ezra 7:6. This Ezra came up from Babylon. He was a teacher well versed in the law of Moses, which the Lord, the God of Israel, had given. 79. Who was the prophet who was called by God to marry a prostitute as a symbol of Israel's unfaithfulness? Hosea, Amos, Joel, Micah. Hosea. Hosea 1:2. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, Go, marry a promiscuous woman and have children with her. For like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord. 80. Who was the Babylonian king who made a golden image and ordered everyone to worship it? Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar, Darius, Cyrus. Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel 3:1. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and he set up on the plain of Jura in the province of Babylon. Tell your score and post in the comments. Thanks for playing, like, subscribe, and keep learning with Bible quizzes.